The Rothschild family is undoubtedly the largest financial dynasty the world has ever seen. It is said that their wealth is so vast that it positions them as the richest on our planet. More than just a name, they embody a myth that has spanned the last 3 centuries of our history. So, how did a Jewish child born in a ghetto manage to create the greatest dynasty in modern history, coming from a family of simple merchants? He became the banker for princes, kings, and even emperors. Yet, behind this remarkable ascent lies a shadow. What power does this immense fortune bestow upon them? Does it enable them to manipulate major governments, or even orchestrate wars to their benefit? A savvy businessman, master of discretion, and builder of a sprawling empire. Allow me to share the extraordinary story of the Rothschild family. Mayer I. Rothschild. In 1744, we find ourselves in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt, specifically the Judengasse, which translates to Jewish alley. This narrow, unsanitary street is enclosed by walls and locked doors. Every evening, Sunday, and holiday, about 3,000 Jews lie crammed in this area. Among these houses, one features a red shield, Roth, and Child, in German. Here, Jews face strict restrictions. They cannot own land or pursue prestigious professions such as lawyer or notary, nor can they engage in manual trades like carpenter or blacksmith. Their survival depends on financial activities and commerce, such as lending money or numismatics, the study of coins, which is essential in a Holy Roman Empire, where each city mints its currency. From a young age, Mayer shows a keen interest in commerce and numismatics. At the age of 10, he learns to evaluate rare coins alongside his father, handling various currencies, florins, thalers, gold coins, carolus, and ducats. Despite his youth, numismatics poses no challenges for him. However, life proves harsh. At 12, Mayer loses both parents within a few months. Orphaned, he is taken in by uncles, who recognize his potential and decide to guide him toward a brighter future in finance. By the age of 13, Mayer is sent to Hanover to apprentice with the Oppenheims, a wealthy Jewish family. There, he discovers the role of court Jew, which enables Jews to play a significant role in the economy at a time when banking systems are still developing. They become bankers for princes, allowing sovereigns to fund extravagant expenses, including jewelry, wars, and arms. Realizing this status, Mayer understands it is his escape from the miserable conditions of the Frankfurt ghetto. For him, the path to freedom and prosperity will pass through finance. After 7 years of apprenticeship, he returns to Frankfurt in his ghetto. At 20, he takes over the family shop, selling currency and rare objects. For each piece he sells, he earns an 8% commission. Thanks to his remarkable talent for numismatics, he attracts prestigious clients. Yet, he has yet to meet the person capable of elevating him to the rank of court Jew. However, a chance encounter will transform his life. General von Hesse, an aristocrat fascinated by ancient coins, becomes intrigued by Mayer's knowledge. The general becomes his ally, and even introduces him to the man who will change the life and destiny of the Rothschild family, the Prince Wilhelm IX, who, at the time, is one of the richest princes in Europe. Testimonies describe Mayer as an elegant young man who inspires confidence, quickly charming the prince. Subsequently, Wilhelm IX tells the general, "The man you recommended is no fool." For several years, Mayer provides impeccable services to Prince Wilhelm, who is very satisfied with his work. However, this is not enough for him to be granted the status of court Jew. Unable to wait any longer, at 25, he attempts a risky maneuver. He writes directly to Wilhelm IX to offer his services. What concerns Mayer is that the prince might react poorly to this bold request. Against all odds, the letter proves effective. Prince Wilhelm, impressed by Mayer's audacity, finally grants him the long-desired status of court Jew. For Mayer, this is a consecration. At just 25, he officially becomes the prince's supplier. Thanks to his new status, Mayer Rothschild sees his wealth increase at an astonishing rate. His small house in Judengasse begins to fill with sacks of gold. His income skyrockets, making him one of the wealthiest men in Frankfurt. However, Mayer aims even higher. On the eve of the Napoleonic Wars, he enters the cannon trade. Indeed, Mayer earns significant sums by dealing with the sale of soldiers torn from their families and forced into war, treated like mere goods. The more deaths or injuries in battle, the more profit the system generates, and the more his coffers fill. He realizes that to succeed faster, he should turn to an even more lucrative domain, lending. He devises a brilliant solution, The wealthy Wilhelm Ajax is eager, but concerned about his image. He wants to lend at usurious rates without tarnishing his reputation, as this practice was frowned upon at the time. Thus, Mayer proposes using his own name to lend Wilhelm Ajax money, aiming to demand high rates without damaging the prince's image while keeping a substantial share of the profits for himself. This idea works wonders. Mayer amasses so much money that he no longer merely lends Wilhelm's funds. He also engages in loans with his own capital, like a bank. However, despite this rapid rise, Mayer continues to live modestly in the ghetto as a strategic choice. He understands that hostility toward Jews could jeopardize his position if he displayed his wealth. To thrive, one must appear poor. This is his creed. His house is overflowing with gold and merchandise, but his lifestyle remains Spartan. Mayer is exemplary in managing his budget. Indeed, a sound budget is the foundation of any financial success. Returning to the Rothschilds, Mayer is aging, yet his ambitions continue to grow. Why not establish a Rothschild bank on a European scale? Nathan Rothschild and the 5 Arrows. Mayer is now 67 years old. To create this European bank, he turns to his 5 sons. On September the 27th, 1810, it is accomplished. An irrevocable partnership contract is signed between Mayer and his sons. The daughters, however, are completely excluded from this family chessboard. Even their husbands and descendants will inherit nothing. Mayer's strategy mirrors that of the famous Florentine bankers of the 15th century, the Medicis. These bankers had sent family members to different cities to establish branches and trading posts essential to the economy of their time. Like the Medicis, Mayer's 5 sons have grown up in the banking world, absorbing their father's teachings of discipline, discretion, and daring. They are sent to the 5 major capitals, each chosen for its geopolitical and economic significance, to establish branches that will carry their name. Anselm remains in Frankfurt, safeguarding the family's historical base under the Rothschild name. Solomon establishes himself in Vienna, the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, founding S. von Rothschild. Meanwhile, Karl heads to Naples, a crucial center for Mediterranean trade, creating C. von Rothschild. James, certainly the most charismatic, goes to Paris, where he sets up Rothschild Freers. Finally, Nathan settles in London, the world's financial hub, where he founds N.M. Rothschild and Sons. This organization is built upon a fundamental principle, family unity. Mayer understands that for his sons to prosper, they must work together. This commitment to cohesion is depicted on the family crest by the 5 arrows, symbolizing strength and indivisibility. Interestingly, the 5 Arrows are still today the name of the private equity division of Rothschild & Co., known as 5 Arrows. Among the 5 sons, Nathan Rothschild occupies a central position in Mayer's plan. Considered the most enterprising and promising, he is sent to London in 1788 at just 21 years old, taking with him £20,000, a colossal sum at the time, representing more than half of the family's wealth. This demonstrates the trust Mayer placed in him. However, Nathan is not yet an accomplished businessman. Although he is brilliant, he arrives in a country where he does not know the language or the customs. Additionally, he is disorganized and fails to keep accurate financial records for his bank. His father warns him, "You have intelligence, but a lack of order can turn a billionaire into a beggar." Nathan soon faces a significant challenge, integrating into the London financial circles while establishing a solid reputation for the Rothschilds. This is what he achieves in the early 1810s. At a time marked by wars against Napoleon, Nathan achieves a remarkable feat by becoming the principal banker of the anti-French coalition. Within a few years, he transfers over £40 million in gold across Europe to cities like Vienna, Berlin, and St. Petersburg in an effort to counter Napoleon. But this is just the beginning. As the wars cascade, Nathan sees an exceptional opportunity to solidify his fortune through speculation on the outcomes of decisive battles. In 1815, Napoleon faces the Allied forces at Waterloo. Legend has it that Nathan uses his network of messengers to gain insider information on the battle's outcome. When his informants signal a likely defeat for Napoleon, he plays a risky game. First, he sells off many of his shares, causing panic in the London markets. Investors believe he possesses secret information about an English defeat, which drives stock prices to plummet. Once prices hit their lowest point, Nathan buys back as many shares as he can. Finally, when Napoleon's defeat becomes official, stock prices on the London Stock Exchange soar. This audacious maneuver is said to have allowed Nathan to earn profits equivalent to 600 million euros in current currency, earning him the nickname, the Napoleon of Finance. However, it's essential to temper this story. While fascinating, Evidence suggests it may primarily be myth. Regardless, the Rothschild fortune continues to grow, prospering across Europe, from London to Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. The Five Arrows of Mayer Amschel established themselves as the designated bankers for kings and government. When Nathan passes away in London in 1836, he is regarded as the richest man in the world. Despite his death, the dynasty remains strong, as while the world of finance only had God to thank for that genius, one of his brothers, James Rothschild, operates in the shadows in France, writing the next chapter of the family saga. James in France. In 1830, Europe is engulfed in the Industrial Revolution. Steam engines traverse the countryside, and factories pulse with the rhythm of machinery. For many, these advancements are just as worrying as they are fascinating. Locomotives, spewing black smoke and emitting sharp whistles, are seen as monsters. These creatures threaten health and employment. James Rothschild, however, sees a much broader vision. Sent by his father Mayer to Paris, he views the railway as a revolutionary potential to connect major cities in France and Europe, boosting the economy and facilitating trade. At a time when the Rothschilds excel in lending to states, this industrial Paris appears risky and almost absurd. Yet James is convinced that this innovation will become the foundation of a new golden age. But how can one persuade a still skeptical society to embrace such a disruptive and shocking vision? Launching the railway industry in France is no small task. Political elites are hesitant to invest, unions are outraged, and financial rivals seek to thwart his ambitions. Investing in railroads means committing astronomical sums for decades, a radical choice for a family used to quick and secure investments. To convince them, James skillfully leverages his influence, transforming his receptions at his private hotel on Rue Lafayette into strategic gatherings. Influential figures of the time, such as Balzac, advocate for the railroads at these events. James doesn't stop there. He also takes politicians to observe the success of railroads in England to demonstrate the economic power of rail in a tangible way. After months of lobbying, he scores an initial victory, the concession for the Paris-Versailles line. Yet, the journey remains long. On August the 24th, 1837, the first locomotive embarks from Paris to Versailles, greeted by the cheers of an amazed crowd. This victory invigorates James. In 1845, he establishes the Compagnie du Nord, a network linking Paris to Lille and ultimately all of Europe. This undertaking transforms Paris into a railway hub and fuels the region's economic growth. However, James' ambitions extend even further. He diversifies into metallurgy, mining, and transportation. This newfound wealth enables him to acquire luxurious properties such as the Château de Ferrières and the private hotel on Rue de Florence, which becomes the hub of an empire where ministers and industrialists mingle. Yet, in 1848, Europe descends into chaos as revolutions lead to strikes and sabotage, crippling networks. The Compagnie du Nord, James' jewel, begins to falter as ruin envelops Paris, as reported by journalist Leon Foucault, who aptly captures the dire situation. Bankers fall one by one, but Rothschild stands firm, albeit drained. James owes this remarkable resilience to the unwavering solidarity of the Five Arrows, which symbolize the unity of the Rothschild brothers during the turbulent times in France. The London branch loans him funds to help the Compagnie du Nord weather the crisis. Once the company is saved, it flourishes once more. Profits soar, and James becomes a pivotal figure in European finance. His immense wealth earns him the nickname demigod of finance. His renowned hotel on Rue Lafayette will later be referred to as the Ministry of Finance of Shadows. With a personal fortune exceeding 40 million francs, he leaves a monumental legacy to his descendants. The death of James Rothschild on November 15, 1868, marks a pivotal turning point. As the last surviving brother, his passing also signifies the end of the legendary era of the famous Five Arrows in Paris. Edmund Rothschild takes over, but under James' authority, divisions become inevitable. Gradually, each branch starts to prioritize its own interests over family solidarity. In 1863, shock strikes, when the Italian branch based in Naples goes bankrupt. The new Italian government replaces the Bourbon, leading to a complete economic collapse. This is a significant blow for the family, as it is the first instance of a Rothschild house going bankrupt. From that point on, each branch must fend for itself. A few years later, the Rothschilds from London achieve a monumental success in 1875, when Lionel Rothschild grants a loan to the British government, allowing it to purchase the Egyptian shares of the Suez Canal. This operation is a major win for his bank, but it is also seen as a betrayal by the Parisian branch. France had initiated the construction of the canal and views this act as a national humiliation.
This discord signifies the onset of a growing rivalry between the London and Paris branches, which were once allies. While London solidifies its position on the global stage, Paris seeks to recover by venturing into new industrial sectors, such as oil. The Parisian Rothschilds managed to dominate the European oil market, heavily investing in refineries in Russia and distributing kerosene throughout Europe. However, this dominance attracts a formidable rival, the Rockefellers, founders of Standard Oil. The clash between the two families is brutal. The infrastructures of the Rothschilds face sabotage and commercial pressures, as the Rockefellers impose pricing structures that make the market untenable. Their influence is such that they dictate terms to railway companies, even prohibiting the transport of Rothschild products. Faced with this unfair competition and unsustainable pressure, the Rothschilds decide to withdraw from the Russian oil market, selling their stake to the Rockefellers in 1911. This decision is seen as yet another humiliation, and the divisions within the family continue. The new generations of Rothschilds begin to shift their focus toward areas far removed from finance. Walter Rothschild, for instance, distinguishes himself in London with his passion for zoology, even going so far as to harness 4 zebras to enter Buckingham Palace, which astonishes the entire British court. Meanwhile, in Paris, Lionel Nathan also turns away from finance to focus on botany, describing himself primarily as a gardener, regarding banking as merely a hobby. This 5th generation of the Rothschilds abandons the pioneering spirit that once motivated the family. This loss of ambition receives criticism, with many lamenting the newer generation of Rothschilds. Yet, even as their financial influence diminishes, the Rothschilds retain their prestige. Despite the crisis, the dynasty persists, with both the London and Paris branches maintaining stability.
The pillaged Rothschilds. By the 1930s, Europe is in turmoil. Social and economic tensions intensify, giving rise to extreme ideologies, and the Rothschilds become symbolic figures for communists who view them as the wealthy exploiting the working class. For the Nazis, their wealth and Jewish identity make them perfect targets. In 1933, Adolf Hitler ascends to power in Germany, triggering the onset of the largest war in human history. He begins by annexing Austria, invading Poland, and in 1940, invading France, plunging Europe into chaos. Some members of the Rothschild family choose to flee the country, while others, like Edouard Rothschild, enlist to defend France. Serving in the French army, he fights on the front lines until the 1940 debacle when Paris falls into German hands. The Rothschilds thus become clear targets. The Nazi regime, along with the Vichy government, orchestrates a massive looting. The Château de Ferrières and the private hotel on Rue de Florentine are requisitioned, and even family businesses are seized. Works of art, including pieces by Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Goya, are confiscated. 42 crates filled with this treasure are sent to Germany, with half designated for Hermann Göring, Hitler's ominous right-hand man. A century's worth of investments is wiped out in just a few months. As they enter Paris on June 14, 1940, they already know where to go to the private residences of the Rothschild family in Austria. Nathaniel Rothschild is held by the Gestapo for over 13 months. However, under unique circumstances, imprisoned in a private hotel, he enjoys a comfortable life for a prisoner, even though he is deprived of his freedom. He will eventually be released, but only after surrendering numerous family businesses to the Nazis. On June 6, 1944, 73,000 Americans land on the beaches of Normandy, marking the start of an offensive that will lead to the liberation of France and the demise of the Nazi regime. The Rothschilds, meanwhile.
The shock of the 1980s. Standing resilient in 1945, a descendant from the 3rd generation of the French branch of the Rothschild family confronts a monumental task. At just 36 years old, he embarks on the mission to restore the family empire that was pillaged and scattered during the war. The devastated French state will compensate them for only 10% of their losses. Guy's priority is to reclaim confiscated assets, such as the company de Chemins d'Affaires du Nord, a crown jewel of Rothschild heritage. He also oversees the restoration of emblematic properties, like Chateau de Ferrières, which had been abandoned following the occupation. Within a few years, Guy's efforts restore the family's prestige. He modernizes the bank, recognizing the impact of new technologies on business management as early as the 1950s. In the meantime, Edmond Adolphe de Rothschild establishes the Swiss branch in 1953, based in Geneva, attracted by Switzerland's stability and neutrality. He focuses on private wealth management for ultra-rich clientele investing in prestigious projects, such as ski resorts in Megève and vineyards. During this period, the name Rothschild becomes more strongly associated with luxury and success. The opulent parties thrown by Marie-Helene de Rothschild at Chateau de Ferrières gather all the prominent figures of the time, including Grace Kelly, Salvador Dali, and Yves Saint Laurent. Everyone attends. However, this glamour also attracts criticism. As political winds shift in France, François Mitterrand takes power on May 10, 1981, and pledges to implement a revolutionary socialist agenda. The left sets its sights on wealthy fortunes as symbols to combat, and the Rothschilds, prominent representatives of banking aristocracy, again become primary targets. Less than a year later, the law of February 11, 1982, is enacted. The decree is irrevocable. The Rothschild Bank is nationalized. The shock is profound for the family. At that time, the bank's assets were valued at 3.4 billion francs, but the state will only compensate them with a paltry 500 million francs. This nationalization is perceived as an injustice, effectively stripping the family of their wealth, reminiscent of the events in 1940. Gradually, the Rothschilds find themselves marginalized. They can no longer establish banks, and instead pivot to creating a management firm named richest. With patience and resilience, they prepare for a comeback. After several years, a new prime minister, Laurent Fabius, is appointed, who adopts a more lenient approach towards previous socialist measures. Influenced by this change, the family regains the right to operate an investment bank. Even better, just 2 years later, the political landscape shifts dramatically. The victory of the right in the legislative elections of 1986 leads to Jacques Chirac becoming prime minister. The focus switches from nationalization to privatization. This significant turnaround allows the Rothschilds to reclaim their honor and their name. For the third time in 5 years, their firm changes its name from Gestion to Rothschild & Co., marking a triumphant return to the financial world. The name lore. In 2003, a critical milestone is reached with the establishment of Concordia BV, a common holding that merges the Parisian and London branches. This strategic alliance is designed to bolster their competitiveness against major global financial institutions. The name Concordia reflects their family motto, Unity, Integrity, Industry. By 2015, Concordia BV is rebranded as Rothschild & Co., symbolizing their commitment to unify their identity. However, this transformation also invites tension. The Swiss branch, Edmond Rothschild, focusing on wealth management, perceives this as an infringement of its identity. The conflict regarding the use of their name escalates, especially in 2015, but a resolution is eventually reached in 2018. The Franco-British branch retains exclusive rights to the name Rothschild, while the website Rothschild.com is jointly managed by both entities. It is noteworthy that the Rothschilds, known for their discretion, seldom engage in public disputes, such as the controversy over the usage of their name. This characteristic of discretion has historically fueled suspicion and conspiracy theories, especially due to their close ties with French politics. The Paris branch excels at attracting talent from the highest echelons of government, often employing graduates from the ENA, École Nationale d'Administration. Among them is Emmanuel Macron, who joins Rothschild as a young inspector of finances in 2008. His hiring as an associate is more attributable to his impressive connections than to his financial acumen, which are viewed as average. Macron, often described as Mozart of finance quickly becomes a millionaire due to the significant deal he navigated with Pfizer. When he returns to politics, many perceive this as a conflict of interest, leading to a scandal that further cements the image of the Rothschilds as kingmakers of the Fifth Republic. Beyond the controversy, what stands out is the extent of their current influence. In terms of finance, Rothschild & Co. operates in 43 countries and employs over 4,200 individuals. Their activities are categorized into three branches. The first is financial advisory, where they assist companies, governments, and families with mergers, acquisitions, or restructuring operations. This division primarily functions in the UK, France, and the US, where they are known as Rothschild & Co. US. In terms of private equity, they maintain a presence in France and the UK via their renowned Five Arrows division. Finally, their private banking branch manages the wealth of affluent clients, with significant activity in Switzerland and France through Rothschild Martin Moreau in wealth management. Within the wine sector, the Rothschild family is profoundly involved, owning some of the world's most prestigious estates, including Chateau Lafayette Rothschild and Chateau Mouton Rothschild in Bordeaux, which produce some of the most acclaimed wines globally. In real estate, they hold iconic properties like the Chateau de Ferrières, a landmark that has weathered the years, and the McGee's Ski Resort. Estimating their fortune is virtually impossible, as it is distributed across numerous descendants and invested in a wide range of diverse sectors, often private and challenging to access. This legendary discretion perpetuates speculation, with estimates ranging from rational figures of around 500 billion euros to completely outrageous numbers such as 20 trillion euros.